I tried to stand up, just like I have done 1,000 times from that exact same chair. But my legs just did not respond at all. For a split second, I felt this absolute panic wash over me. The thought that flashed through my mind was not that I am just getting old. It was this terrifying feeling that I am losing control of my own body.
Hearing you say that out loud just gives me chills, Susan. Because that quiet, private struggle is something so many people watching right now are terrified of. Dr. Anya, we hear this exact fear from so many of our viewers over 50.
We do, and it breaks my heart because people suffer in silence, thinking it is inevitable. But what if I told you that frightening moment is not the beginning of the end? It is actually a critical warning sign your body is sending you right now. And it is a signal that millions of us are completely misinterpreting every single day.
That completely changes how we look at aging. Today, we're going to talk about exactly why your legs are often the very first thing to weaken as the years go by. More importantly, we are going to show you a clear path forward. We will walk through 5 simple movements that can help you reclaim that lost strength safely from your own home. And we will also reveal the specific foods that actually fuel your physical foundation for the years ahead. This is about making sure you stay firmly in the driver's seat of your own life. Let us start right there with your story, Susan. Before you experienced that truly frightening moment in your living room, were there smaller signs you might have been brushing off? Susan, let us go back to the time before that scary afternoon. Tell us about those smaller warning signs you mentioned earlier. I am talking about the little things that are so easy to brush off as just having a bad day.
Oh, there were definitely signs looking back now. I just really did not want to see them at the time. It honestly started with the stairs in my own house. I would find myself holding the handrail just a little bit tighter than usual, especially when I was going down the stairs.
Going down always feels a bit scarier because you really feel that shift in your balance.
Exactly, you feel like you have to brace yourself for every step. And then I started noticing it after a simple trip to the grocery store. I used to love walking down the aisles and taking my time. But suddenly my legs would feel incredibly heavy by the time I got to the checkout line. It honestly felt like I had just walked through wet concrete.
Wow, that is a powerful way to describe that feeling. It is like dragging extra physical weight around with you everywhere.
That is exactly what it felt like for me. But I just kept telling myself that I was only tired from a long week. I even used to joke with my husband about our living room furniture. I would tell him that our favorite recliner was getting way too comfortable, when the honest truth was something else entirely. It was simply getting harder and harder to push myself up and out of it.
It is amazing the stories we tell ourselves to avoid the truth, isn't it? We say, I am just tired, or it is just a really deep chair. We blame everything around us except our own changing bodies. Dr. Anya, I have to ask you about this behavior. Is this pattern of self-explanation common among the older adults you work with?
Yes, it is incredibly common in my practice. And I want everyone watching to know that you should not feel ashamed of it. It is actually a very natural psychological defense mechanism. Acknowledging these small physical declines feels a lot like acknowledging a loss of your vitality. Nobody wants to admit they are slowly losing their independence. So our brains just rationalize these moments away to protect our ego.
That makes perfect sense when you put it that way. It is much easier to blame the stairs than to admit your legs are getting weaker.
Precisely. But from a medical perspective, we simply cannot ignore them. These little moments are not just you having a tired day. They are actually the early data points of a real condition called age-related muscle loss. We often refer to it clinically as sarcopenia.
Sarcopenia sounds like a very intimidating word.
It sounds scary, but understanding it is the first step to managing it effectively. You see, the large muscles in your thighs and hips are the physical engine of your body. The problem is that this loss happens so incredibly gradually over the years. You lose a tiny fraction of strength every single month without noticing. So it quietly just becomes your brand new normal. You adjust your daily life around it without even realizing what you are giving up. Until one day, it simply is not normal anymore. And your body finally fails to do what you ask of it.
That is a very chilling thought to sit with. And that is exactly what happened to you, Susan. You had these little signs adding up and creating this new normal for your routine. But then you had that terrifying moment when the phone rang. Take us back to your living room and tell us what actually happened next. What exactly changed on that specific afternoon?
Well, I remember my daughter was calling. I could hear her specific ringtone coming from the kitchen. I was in my recliner, and I just went to stand up quickly to grab the phone. But it was not just a slow or tired feeling this time. It was a complete disconnect.
What do you mean by a disconnect?
I mean, my brain sent the signal to stand up like it always does. But my legs just sort of buckled under me. I actually lurched forward, and I had to throw my hands out to catch myself on the coffee table. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. And honestly, it was not the near fall that scared me the most. It was the terrible feeling of being a complete stranger in my own body.
It is the feeling that your own body is no longer on your team.
Exactly that. All I could think right after was, what if I had actually fallen down? What if I was completely alone in the house? How long would it have been until someone found me on the floor? That kind of fear is just incredibly profound.
It shakes your entire sense of security. Dr. Anya, hearing Susan describe that disconnect between her brain and her legs. What is actually happening medically in that terrifying split second?
Susan, I want to say that fear you felt is a very powerful and perhaps necessary catalyst. That specific moment you described is what we call a functional failure in the medical field.
A functional failure.
Yes, and it is important to understand that it is not necessarily a new disease. It is a sudden capabilities gap. Your mind had a totally reasonable expectation of what your physical body could do. And for the very first time, your body simply could not meet that demand. The muscles were just not firing the way they used to.
That makes a lot of sense, because it really felt like a miscommunication.
It is a miscommunication. And the key question here is not that this failure happened, it is why it happened in the first place. Because the answer to that actually surprises most people. It is not just about getting older.
Okay, so let us get right into that. Why does this happen to so many of us? Most of us really do think it is just the natural part of aging that we simply have to accept. What are we getting so wrong about this?
And that is exactly the biggest myth we need to shatter today. For many of us, this physical decline isn't just about age. It is often a very specific and manageable mechanical issue. Or to be more accurate, it is two separate mechanical problems happening at the exact same time.
Okay, please break that down for us.
First, you have the large muscles in your thighs and hips. Think of those specific muscles as the main engine of your body. They are simply losing mass and power from chronic underuse over the decades. But the second part of the problem is what usually shocks my patients the most. You actually have a second heart located in your lower body.
A second heart! I do not think I have ever heard a doctor use that phrase before.
Figuratively speaking, of course, but functionally, it is absolutely true. I am talking about your calf muscles. Think about how your main circulatory system works. Your primary heart easily pumps oxygen-rich blood down through your arteries. Gravity is actually helping that process along. But the veins in your lower legs have a much harder job to do. They have to fight directly against gravity to push all that blood back up to your chest. And they cannot do it entirely on their own. They rely heavily on the physical squeezing action of your calf muscles. Every single time you walk or climb stairs or move your ankles, those muscles act like a mechanical pump.
So they are literally squeezing the veins to keep the blood moving upward.
Exactly right. Now think about what happens when we become more sedentary as we get older. When you sit in a chair for hours, reading or watching television, that second heart essentially goes to sleep. The pump stops working. So the blood starts to pool down in your lower legs. Circulation drastically slows down. And that is exactly when you get that heavy, swollen, and deeply tired feeling in your legs.
Oh my goodness, that makes so much sense now. That completely explains the concrete feeling I had in the grocery store.
Yes, Susan, it was not just muscle fatigue you were feeling. It is essentially a plumbing problem within your body. When the pump is weak, everything feels twice as heavy.
I am just processing this because it is so fascinating. We always think that sitting down is how we rest our legs and recover. But when we are sitting for long periods of time, we are actually turning off this vital pump system.
Precisely. We are not just resting our legs when we sit for hours on end. We are actively decommissioning a critical part of our cardiovascular system. And that is why just taking a casual walk around the block is not always enough to fix it.
That is a truly game-changing way to think about our own bodies. So if the real problem is a weak engine in our thighs and a sleeping pump in our calves, the solution has to be a lot more specific than just telling people to walk more. Where do we even start to rebuild this foundation safely?
That is a great question. But before we begin, I want to remind everyone watching, if you have severe pain or a pre-existing medical condition, please check with your doctor before starting any new routine.
Absolutely. Safety first. So, where is the best place to start?
We start with the single most important functional movement you already do every single day. Standing up from a chair.
Just simply standing up.
Just standing up, but we are going to turn it into a very controlled exercise. I like to call it the sit-to-stand movement. The key here is trying your best not to use your arms to push off the armrests. You want to lean slightly forward and press your weight evenly through your heels. But here is the real secret that most people completely miss. The real magic of this exercise happens when you sit back down. You do not just let gravity drop you back into the chair. You lower yourself down slowly and with total body control. That slow descent is what truly rebuilds the large thigh muscles. It safely wakes up your engine. And please, go at your own pace. If something feels sharp or painful, listen to your body and stop immediately.
That is a vital point. It is about progress, not pushing through pain. That is incredibly poetic if you really think about it. The exact piece of furniture that became a point of struggle can actually become your main tool for recovery.
That was actually the very first exercise I tried doing at home. I have to admit, it felt a little bit silly at first. I was just standing up and sitting down by myself in the living room. But after doing it consistently for about a week, I noticed a real physical difference. It just did not take as much sheer effort to get out of my recliner anymore.
That is wonderful, Susan. Your leg muscles just needed to be gently reminded of how to work together again.
Okay, so that effectively takes care of the main engine in our thighs. What about that second heart you mentioned earlier? How do we wake up our calves and get that circulation moving properly?
This one is even simpler, and you can do it pretty much anywhere. I always tell my patients to do this while they are standing in the kitchen waiting for their morning coffee. It is simply called the calf pump. You stand near a kitchen counter so you can lightly touch it for balance. Then you slowly rise up onto the balls of your feet. Hold that raised position for just 1 or 2 full seconds at the top. And then very slowly, lower your heels back down flat onto the floor. Every single time you do that movement, you are manually activating that internal pump. You are literally forcing that pooled blood to travel back up toward your chest.
It is almost like a manual override button for your own circulation system.
That is actually a perfect way to describe it. Doing just 10 to 15 of those a day can make your legs feel significantly lighter by the evening.
I really love how accessible this is for every single person watching right now. You do not need a fancy gym membership or expensive equipment to do any of this. These are just practical things anyone can easily integrate into their normal daily routine. So we have a solid way to rebuild our leg power, and we have a way to improve our circulation. But what about the other great fear that always comes along with leg weakness? I am talking about the very real fear of suddenly falling down. That is really about balance, which feels like a much harder skill to get back once you start losing it. You know, balance always feels like this mysterious thing that you either have or you completely lose. It is not like building a bicep where you can actually see the muscle growing.
You are so right about that perception. People treat balance like it is a fading sense, but it really is not. It is actually a highly trainable physical skill. It is entirely based on the communication between your brain and the tiny stabilizer muscles in your feet and ankles. And just like any other physical skill, you can safely practice it to get better.
That is incredibly reassuring to hear. So, how exactly do we safely practice it at home?
We use a movement called the heel-to-toe walk. You definitely want to stand right next to a wall or a long countertop, so you have something to touch for support. You simply place one foot directly in front of the other, touching your heel right to your toe. Then you take very slow and deliberate steps forward. The entire goal here is not speed at all. The goal is absolute control.
So, you're essentially waking up that internal conversation between your brain and your feet.
Exactly. You are actively retraining those critical neural pathways. Now, the second balance exercise is actually something you can do while you are sitting down.
Wait, we can work on our balance while we are sitting?
Yes, because balance is also about safely lifting your feet. We call it the seated march. You sit up nice and tall, and you just slowly lift one knee up toward your chest and then the other. This specific movement wakes up your hip flexors. Those flexors are the very muscles responsible for lifting your feet properly so you do not trip over things like rugs or cracks in the sidewalk.
I do that one all the time when I am watching the evening news now. It honestly seems way too easy to be doing anything. But I really do not shuffle my feet when I walk around the house anymore.
And that is the absolute beauty of it. It is incredibly effective at maintaining mobility, especially if you find yourself sitting for longer periods during the day.
Okay, so we have covered movements that address our core strength, our circulation, and our balance. That covers the physical exercise side of the equation. But we also promised people in the title of this video that what they eat plays a massive role in this. So, Dr. Anya, how exactly do we fuel this new foundation we are trying to build?
Think of it this way. The exercises we just talked about provide the signal for your muscles to grow. But your food is what actually provides the physical building blocks to do it. And the biggest challenge is that after age 50, our bodies naturally become less efficient at processing protein.
Less efficient. So, even if we are eating the same amount as before, we are getting less benefit from it.
Exactly right. Which means most older adults are simply not getting enough protein to even maintain their current muscle mass, let alone build new muscle.
Okay, so this is not about going on some crazy restrictive diet. It is really about having a strong protein focus.
Precisely. Your goal should be to intentionally include a solid source of protein with every single meal. It does not have to be complicated. Think about having a couple of eggs or some Greek yogurt for breakfast. Adding some grilled chicken or black beans to a lunchtime salad. and then having fish or a piece of lean meat for dinner. The key here really is just consistency over perfection.
I like that a lot. Consistency over perfection feels very achievable for daily life. Are there any other key nutrients we should be looking out for?
There are two other key players I always recommend to my patients. The first is magnesium. You can find it easily in nuts, seeds, and dark leafy greens. Magnesium is incredibly important because it actually helps support proper muscle function and relaxation. And the final piece is simply staying properly hydrated.
Just drinking enough water.
Just water, yes, because dehydrated muscles are fundamentally weak and easily fatigued muscles. You cannot build strength if your tissues are chronically dried out.
So to summarize that strategy, it is consistent protein throughout the day, some magnesium from nuts and greens, and staying well hydrated. That really is a simple but incredibly powerful foundation. Susan, I want to bring this back to you now. Hearing all of this science today and looking back at your own journey, from that very frightening moment in your living room to where you are sitting right now, what would you say is the absolute biggest change you feel in your life?
You know, looking back, the absolute biggest change actually is not in my legs at all. It is completely in my head. It is this profound sense of everyday confidence that I honestly thought I had lost forever. It is the simple, everyday freedom of not having to silently second-guess myself anymore. I do not have to calculate the physical risk every single time I try to stand up from a chair. I do not have to hesitate before saying yes to a spontaneous walk in the park with my grandkids. I really feel like I finally got my independence back. And the most surprising part is that I did not even have to leave my own living room to achieve it.
That is just so incredibly beautiful to hear, Susan. You took back control of your life without needing a gym membership or some massive lifestyle overhaul.
And that right there is the entire clinical and personal goal of everything we discussed today. We are absolutely not trying to create competitive athletes here. This entire process is simply about preserving the core person that you already are. It is about protecting your physical ability to maintain the specific life that you genuinely want to keep living. When you actively take the time to support your body, it will naturally continue to support you.
That is such a powerful and hopeful reframing of how we all look at getting older. The physical strength you actively choose to build today truly becomes the independence you get to live tomorrow. And as we learned today, that journey does not have to start with running a marathon or lifting heavy weights. It simply starts with a single controlled movement, right there in your favorite chair. The choice we face as we age is not just a binary path between inevitable decline and quiet acceptance. The real choice is taking the time to fully understand how your physical machinery actually works, and then gently giving your body exactly what it needs to keep carrying you forward. Susan, I want to thank you so much for being so vulnerable and sharing your personal wake-up call with us today.
Thank you so much for having me and letting me share it with everyone.
And Dr. Anya, thank you for breaking down the complex science in a way that actually makes sense to all of us.
It was my absolute pleasure to be here.
And to everyone watching at home right now, thank you for spending your valuable time with us today. We want to leave you with one simple but important question to think about. What is the one small step you will take starting today to protect your own independence?